Hello. I'm petting a very cute dog right here, so new baby boy. So I'll be moving my hand. Looks like it's just petting the air, but it's not. It's actually a cute dog. So I'm house sitting at this place, and I've been thinking lately about being, you know, being loving and kind to myself in all situations, no matter what's happening. And not always, not feeling like I have to look for the breakthrough, not feeling like I have to pattern match to try to see like what in my outside circumstances seems to maybe mimic some story I've heard in the past of what someone's breakthrough, transformative, like fucking like sunshine through the clouds, just bathing you, that kind of like angelic image you get where everything is just like turned around and you get it. And it's a hard cut between the past and the future, like, that kind of idea of change and transformation. Not looking for that. Just I'm not looking for that because, for example, like I've been talking to a new therapist lately. I've only talked to her 2 times so far, but I noticed that I have this feeling of like I'm looking for someone to save me again. I'm looking for this one person, like they have to say all the right words that make everything feel okay for me. And and then I'm like, oh, it's really not about this person. Like I don't have control over this person. This person is like, yeah, they're a nice person and that's good. But they're a therapist. It's a professional thing. Like this isn't a personal relationship that has any kind of potential, and it is inherently extremely limited. So like not putting huge expectations, like it has to be amazing and perfect, or I gotta leave, or like this person has to understand everything perfectly that I say, or that we have to be, they have to perceive me in the way that I perceive myself. Just realizing like it's hard, because my life, I haven't known to do this for most of my life, but for that to be my main responsibility of being like, it is my job to see myself in a favorable, beautiful light, no matter what. And it is other people's job to be themselves, do whatever. People are inevitably gonna try to bring things to my attention. And it is my job to not use shame against myself, and to not, sometimes it can be sneaky the way that we use shame against ourselves, right? Like I know for me, sometimes it looks like feeling like someone hurt me. If I feel like someone hurt me, the reason why it's so painful is because I'm using shame against myself. And I'm thinking that like I should have done something differently. I am broken, I messed up, I failed, I didn't control the thing, I allowed this to happen. All of this thinking that creates a framework for why the pain feels so deep when somebody does something, or why I might even interpret pain in the first place. That it just adds the suffering level, and the fear of anticipation, the fear of interacting with people. So there's flies buzzing around in here in this house. I think that there's like fly eggs. This is gonna sound gross, but I think that there's fly eggs somewhere that they've been like hatching in this home, probably in the house plants or something. Because the flies are just like generating, just popping up out of nowhere. And this is a clean house. This is like a regular, nice, clean house. So it's fun. Anyway, if you see more flies, that's why. So, a part of me having this sense of responsibility, this like deep responsibility that it is my job to not shame myself, to notice when my pain is coming from shaming myself. A part of that is me realizing to what extent I have this sense of shame or worthiness that is dependent on how I look and how I present myself. And since I'm trying to set the foundation for myself, that I can have the strength to love and accept myself and have that internal dynamic no matter what I look out like on the outside, not trying to perform for myself or show myself, prove anything. I can be as broken as I am. I can just be like, ugh, here I am, like and it still be able to find myself beautiful, and not even just physically beautiful, but like poetically, like humanly beautiful, like beautiful in character, beautiful in capacity, just as I am, not seeing how my presentation is evidence of flaws, but seeing how my evidence is, or how my self-presentation is evidence of my character and my values, and lack of resources, yes, but also a prioritization of my resources while they are so limited, and being like, okay, my resources aren't really on, I'm not putting them towards the things that in culture we use to signify, try to communicate like confidence or readiness, rather, trying to communicate this sense of like, I know who I am and what I want, and like I'm really trying to get people to see a particular thing in me to increase my chances of opportunities, or to increase, the likelihood people will treat me well. These kind of strategic ways that we all try to use to cultivate our appearance. I'm not using that, I have been like I've always been big on health, like cleanliness, in terms of like washing and dental care and all of that. Like that's extremely important to me. But as far as like self-presentation, like trying to look super healthy or super put together or really organized, or trying to cultivate an image that can't be seen in a negative light, or that looks just like very widely acceptable, like someone you would see in a commercial, like just like appealing to the biggest common denominator or whatever. Basically, I've been really focusing my efforts on how do I love myself when I am like feeling messy, like I like just sweats in a t-shirt and feeling kind of sick because I'm crying, or I'm just laying down and kind of like thinking a lot, just being like the past, the future, what is supposed to be happening now, and just learning how to love myself, and being like, in every single moment, I'm going to love myself no matter what is happening. And that looks like me laying down on the couch for hours watching TV and being like, I love myself. And like, I don't judge myself. Like, I don't feel any shame for this. If I want to get up and move around because it feels good, and I can picture like my body as fluid, that I'm just like moving to feel the goodness that I deserve to enjoy as a human being, but I'm not doing it for any kind of moralistic worth. Like, in order to love myself or be considered worthy, I have to move my body. I'm not doing it for that reason, like I can be having all this going on, I'm just laying on the couch, but this is the whole huge narrative that's in my head while I'm laying there thinking, maybe writing, and loving myself through that. When I see pictures of myself and I'm like, wow, like I really, like, my genetics and resources and background and upbringing and all this stuff, it does not match what is kind of depicted as the standard for what you're allowed to consider beautiful. when I like see myself in the mirror and think of that, there can be parts of me that immediately feel like I'm kind of obligated to turn against myself in order to be like a good person with morals that are just practical or common, like feel a sense of community by complying to this sense of values, you know. But I'm like, well, actually, my values is that everybody can see the beauty that we have in us and know that our beauty is limited by factors outside of our control always. You know, beauty of physicality, beauty of character is entirely always limited by the resources we have access to, and resources include information, you know, like how to move within ourselves and move with other people in a way that feels accessible and safe and rewarding and strong to us, so that we can utilize like the physical resources maybe that we have around us, or the opportunity resources, or whatever it is. And yeah, just in general, you know, my values that I'm affirming in myself are very much that I can walk down the street without thinking the whole time like, oh my God, like all these cars driving past me, they can judge me for like being like looking like homeless trash. I've been homeless a lot, so that is something that is kind of baked into my head as a scar, you know. Like I can walk down the street not trying to cultivate my appearance and not judge myself and feel harmed or feel afraid that people will you know, make these harsh judgments against me that I saw in the world and internalized against myself, like that I am trashy, or I am poor, or that I am like unethical or evil or deserve punishment in some kind of way, because of what can be insinuated, not even what is true, but what can even be insinuated by my appearance. Like people might look at me and think like, oh, I look sloppy, I must not have good cleanliness, or I might not wash. I'm like, I'm obsessive about that. But, you know, not internalizing these kind of judgments against myself that I think random people could make. Or that, you know, like I can make against other people also, like these kind of snap judgments that they're programmed into us for a reason, so that in really hectic scenarios we can try to stay safe as much as possible. And most of the world is constantly in survival mode and doesn't even realize it. So we are kind of living in these really limited landscapes of the mind. But we don't even realize it. So we are kind of making these snap judgments, and it's useful and good because God, like we have to pick and choose where our energy goes. You know, we do have to have these kind of snap judgments, and hopefully have other people around us, you know, have the grace to gently, maybe not gently sometimes, but correct us on our assumptions, and then we recalibrate. But sometimes our correct assumptions can be recalibrated wrongly because people use shame and punishment in order to try to control perception, or just, you know, non-transparency. And so anyway, that kind of goes into a whole other thing. But in general, you know, I think a lot about how other people can judge me and go into all these narratives that I weaponize against myself without realizing it for like my whole life. I weaponize against myself, like being in all these imaginary, sometimes not imaginary, sometimes it's real scenarios, but these scenarios where I feel like I'm having to defend everything about myself, I'm having to prove, you know. And I understand why a lot of people, and why myself, but many times in my life, do comply to more typical beauty standards or external surface level appearances, because it's just kind of a practical, useful tool in order to have compassion for everybody's limitedness, and including our own, you know, our limitations of energy, and how we do make snap judgments, and how we do have this inherent desire to have things feel like safe and orderly, but safety is also tied to what we're used to, like accustomed to, like what feels familiar, and our own standard for our own self, is relative. But anyway, yeah, I'm just like, I guess in general you could say I'm embracing the weirdness in myself more, which will also allow me to see people less through the lens of fear, but look also more for other people's beauty and the characteristics that are wonderful. And I guess I've been realizing more lately, like, nobody has it all together. It's very rare that you're going to meet somebody who is so compatible that it just falls together. I think those moments that feel like they're falling together always have to be present in a worthwhile relationship, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to also have difficulty and doubt and like, oh God, like I don't really know how I feel about that in somebody else, whether or not it's just because something, of myself comes up, like my own insecurities, I see it through someone else, I'm judging myself, so I judge them, or whether it's because somebody is actually doing something like unhealthy that could affect me, or that is affecting them and I am concerned about it. I don't know. In general, I feel like a part of my isolation is just a part of it, very complex. But I think a part of it has been being really afraid of this sense of responsibility that I put on myself when I see the areas of other people that need work, or that if it was a part of my life, I wouldn't want it to be there. And it's a part of learning to not project responsibility onto myself for things that aren't my responsibility. And a part of me remembering I always have my boundaries. Like, I'm not inviting someone to be everything and all to me in every kind of way and have every kind of freedom in my life and what affects me. That helps me realize it's okay when I see flaws in other people. And something I was talking about with my boyfriend lately also is that it can be a really beautiful way to feel needed and like we are of help when we see difficulties in people and we feel like we have ways that can help them. And it also takes courage and self-trust to think that we even have. Then it takes somebody who can act, oh my God, these flies, but someone who can act in equal response. Oh my God, these flies are driving me crazy. When anyway, I got distracted by the flies, but but people who are able to say something like, I actually don't need this help, or like, yes, please, the help, but people who are able to communicate clearly within themselves, so they're able to communicate clearly to each other for what actually feels supportive. And it's really difficult seeing struggle in other people, seeing struggle in ourselves, and being like, how to balance between, if shame is out of the picture, or maybe it comes up still as emotions, but logically you don't use that as like the narrative that you hold on to, how in the world do you balance the strong emotions and questions and thoughts that come up, just seeing how everybody's energy is organized in the world, how our own energy is organized in the world, and how we think of ourselves as a result of other people putting their own expectations or thoughts or feelings onto the way our own energy is organized. It's extremely complex, And a lot of people, you know, they are very comfortable with the more warlike approach, like that's just been normalized their whole life, so they've always known, or maybe they gravitated towards it later, this kind of warlike approach of like, no, you just have to be very blunt. Like I understand the practicality of it, right? Like you got to be very blunt, you got to just say what you think and feel directly to people. It's a dryer. Anyway, I don't want to get too much on that rabbit trail, but yeah, basically I think a lot about just how can I put less responsibility on myself? How can I be more loving and like practice like being in situations where I do feel really judgmental towards myself and embarrassed for no reason and like harsh and like wanting to harm myself because of shame, and then being able to like think in the moment, remember like I don't shame myself anymore. That is not my value. That is not my responsibility. That is not my personal belief of how to deal with things, and just feeling like, whew, the relief that comes from changing that perspective over, and just practicing that over and over again. You know, I've been looking for opportunities and practicing not judging other people also. And not because when you're judging somebody, I think that there's a huge sense of responsibility that you're taking on in managing other people's perceptions because of what you think they might assume about us because of someone else, because someone that we're with, you know. And just always assuming that negative assumptions are going to be had instead of like positive assumptions maybe. And yeah, it's really exhausting being alive in general, but exhausting having to reprocess and rewrite the entire way that you process yourself and other people. But it's the only way forward, you know. For me, like once I've gotten free from substances and I've over the past 8 years developed some type of stability in my life, the next step is, okay, now that I have this blessing, how do I eradicate the ways of thinking that allowed these horrible circumstances in my life to develop? And I'm not saying that like I was an evil person to have it, or I'm like responsible. I wasn't responsible then because, you know, it's just what I inherited, circumstances, luck, like just factors around me. But I'm responsible now because I have been through those experiences and I have different resources now. So, but responsibility doesn't equate to punishment or shame. It just equates to happiness, you know. Responsibility for me means the my capacity to help, to understand my needs and my desires so I can be happy and actually enjoy being alive, since I'm not going to euthanize myself anytime soon, you know. Why not enjoy being alive? Anyway, I started this video just wanting to talk about like in general like weirdness, like being messy, being weird, being raw, being like, especially as a woman, things that are considered like horrible for women to be. Not being pretty, not being perfect, not being nice, not being digestible, not being charmingly undigestible, you know, but in a charming way, like being uncharming, being just like blunt, being weird, being all these things that people in general, but especially women are or just really vulnerable people in general, more vulnerable people, let's say, not like women as a group, but like vulnerable people, and being a woman might be a part of that. Things that we are like punished or attacked or harassed for, and not complying with these standards of like being nice, being bearable, being small, and like palatable. And I've just been wanting to take more pride in being like, yeah, like I am ugly, like ugly in this sense of like, I mean, everybody's beautiful and I'm beautiful, you know. I have many beautiful parts, but I also have many ugly parts. And ugly is, I think it's a playful word. I think ugly is like, I don't think ugly is this big shameful thing. I think it's like this point of like pride and defiance to be like, yeah, I'm ugly. Like I have ugly parts of me. So much of me is ugly. I'm beautiful also, but so much of me is ugly. And part of that is because the world is a fucked up, disgusting place that it creates ugliness. And I'm not going to oppress and victimize myself and allow other people to do that to me also, just because, you know, we're kind of programmed that to be super harsh and critical of ourselves, especially like to try to prevent other people from harming us under the threat of other people harming us, you know. We learn to do it to ourselves for not complying, for not being beautiful, for not being perfect, for not, you know, all these things. The narratives we use, it can be so deeply entrenched in these senses of feeling like we have to oppress and harm ourselves so other people don't, or feeling like we have to feel like our ugliness is shameful. And I'm just like, I want no part of that anymore. And it's very freeing. You know, I felt that way when I was younger a good bit, but I didn't have the words. It was just an intuitive thing. It was just how I was. And I've been through the exact opposite of that, of being hyper, like looking at myself under a microscope, being super punishing, harsh, judgmental towards myself. And just being like, how can I, you know, find my way back to that perspective I had when I was younger through words. Like, what are the words that now represent that path back to that emotional state, that feeling of embodiment of, you know. So yeah, that is something I've just been thinking about lately, is like being proud of ourselves, no matter like how scrappy, how, and you know, the other side of that coin. Like I'm talking about this within the context of extreme emotional vulnerability to you know, to self-harm and the pain of, you know, all that. But I think that the next stage, and something I already do a bit as well, is you know, of course being proud of myself no matter what the ugly is, like being proud of looking for the ways that the ugliness says good things about me, but also being like, you know, I'm really curious of what is that perspective also of being like, I want more joy, and maybe what is labeled ugliness, it's just a thing, a condition, a state that can be changed into another thing that might give me more happiness. And neither option, it kind of removes that sense of pressure and confusion, basing like what I base my decisions off of, you know, to be like, I either have to comply and be all this and, you know, avoid punishment and harm and all this stuff, or I have to be like, well, sorry, I'm tired, so I'm kind of I'm not really in the best state right now to be trying to explain this stuff, but I hope the general idea or the seed is right there, so that someone or me in the future or something can pick up on where my mind was. Sorry, I lost that thought. But, that's a part of the ugliness, is that a part of why I have this YouTube channel is that I am very much practicing not being ashamed of my ugliness, of my divergence from what is most commonly expected to be worthy of attention or worthy of energy, or something to be proud of. And I think it's so crucial to remember that pride is really relative to where somebody is, to where we are in the moment. Anyway, yeah, just I'm curious of how to bring the conversation away from this sense of like high stakes situation, of like compliance and safety from other people compared to not complying and being true to myself. The conversation is away from that false dichotomy kind of, but the conversation, it can be more around, how do I just feel in my body and evidence of my own mind and life what feels rewarding and interesting, and like in every single moment, what is appropriate for every single moment. Being flexible to be like, maybe that wasn't right for last moment, but it's right for this moment. And it's hard when trying to communicate and trying to accept, for myself, like I can't always just force myself to comply like I could in the past. And trying to express this to other people, it's also important to be able to comply when the rewards are worth it. That's the thing. To comply when the rewards make it all worth it, and you get that proof of rewards that helps put in your mind the healing experience of like, oh, if I complied in that way, like something really good actually did happen. And it can't be some far off, like someday I'm doing this for some reason, someday. It has to be like, no, like right in the moment. You get that feedback. It's like with dogs. Like when I'm walking dogs, the dog training that I've done with loose leash walking, it's like you got to reward the dog right in the moment and give them that feedback to help them realize like, oh, this is safe, this is good. You can't explain it. Our nervous systems are like the same thing. You can't explain to a dog like, later you're gonna get to play in the pool and eat a bone if you you have to have more instant gratification. And I think, yeah, anyway, I don't want to get too distracted, but thanks for listening and take care. Bye.